how to create a pivot table, and also how you create what we call the graphs. So you just be able to see on that. So if you have the past paper, if you have been able to open that, the Excel, can tell me that we now proceed. We've been able to open the Excel now, we just proceed. Been able to open that Excel, you just tell me we proceed. Open the Excel that I've shared so that we just proceed. Kindly open the Excel that I've shared. We do that question, then it will just be introducing us to two things, as I've said, to introduce us to what we call the visualizations, and also on visualization generally is on how we create the pivot table, and also how we can create a graph. We just be able to see that using that particular paper. So if you open the Excel, remember I say this is a practical paper, and also ensure that you have somewhere you can write. Generally, it's in where you can just be able to write as a way of reminder as you do the question as well. And again, also as I've said, is I will also share the workings for purposes of generally, if you want to review, you can be able to review. So I don't know whether you've been able to open that. I want to do it a little bit fast. Open, then we do this very fast. If you open the Excel, let me know you want to do that given question. I want to know that given question. You have the Excel, just tell me so that we just do the question. Please comment if you have the. All right, Tom is okay, he's ready. I'm just hoping also the rest you are ready. Clear. And Caroline, Abby, Francisca. Grace, if you're ready, just let me, we just proceed. You're ready, just tell me, we just proceed. All right, then now everyone is ready, or just a second. I've said we just begin with the whole of these topic here. I mean, this exam, we see how we're supposed to do. Now, this is a question from what we call the PDA. And the question from the PDA, it will help us to know how we can use some of what we call the functions and also the formula. So the question was owing to the public outcry on implementation of various projects across the country. The National Treasury of your country has provided the data to project the implementation in the first 4 years. So hiyo ni kuambia we are dealing with the projects that in this case are supposed to be implemented as per the National Treasury. Then we've been given the data sets to comprise of the project focus area, where we've been given there for the column. We have bank data on projects and the projects, and we have the detailed breakdown, where we have it from column J onwards. An economic watchdog organization has approached you to help analyze the data for purposes of making meaningful deliberations on the data provided. So we've been given the data is in the next Excel sheet labeled question 25 data. Given the bank statement amounts column shows the disbursements to the project's ID. So you are required on Roman number 1 using the relevant formulas or functions. We fill the appropriate data to the blank columns, that is M, R, U, V, and W. So I'll go to the data. This is the data, Malinanzia. Our data is from here. This is now the project focus. The focus. And then we have the project ID, the date. We have the disbursed amount. We also have this one is project ID. We also have the date here. This is the date, you have to correct it because it's not in date form. I say the thing that you do, you just highlight this. You just place your cursor up here, then you just left click, and then you go to this column here where you have in the number. Then you can just put the short date. It will generally appear in date form. Because if you use it as indicated there, it will just be showing values. So that is it. That is for the date. Project, we have the project focus, which is one of the areas that we're supposed to fill. We also have the financial. We have the county, we have the household impacted. Budget, we have the disbursed amount, the project cost. We have the main cost, disbursement balances, project variances, and then we have the variance status. Variance status, you are either indicating whether it's adverse or what we call the favorable. Now, we can begin by filling the blank column, and the first one in this case will be data. I've said you just come here, you highlight that column. You just highlight the column. Once you highlight the column, you just come here to where we have in the short date. You highlight the column, then you go to short date. It will just change. So we begin with what we call the project focus. Now, project focus is here. We want to know out of the project, out of each and every project that we've been given here. Remember, our projects are based on these items here. Is either on the relief aid, medical, farm tools, and the implements. And we also have what we call the power connectivity, the seeds and fertilizer, road services, and we have what we call the affordable housing, higher learning, and we have the research. So in this case, is out of the projects that we have in here, we need to, out of this information that we've been given here, to ensure that it reflects as per the project. Sorry. So I say this is where we introduce the concept of what we call the Vlookup. Vlookup. And a Vlookup, we say, just say you place on the is equal, the Vlookup. Now, when you look at the Vlookup here, the way we've been told, it looks for a value. And this is from in the leftmost column of a table, and then returns a value in the same row from the column you specify. And this is by default. In this case, we've been told that the table must be in what? Must be sorted in an ascending order. So this is what will help us to ensure that in this case, if we want to match the project with the project focus, we will be able to achieve that given objective. So I'll just type the Vlookup, then I click on the Vlookup. When you look at the Vlookup, it is telling us we look at the lookup value, which in this case is on the project. So I will click on higher learning. Once you click on higher learning, you can do what we call a partial lock. Partial lock, generally we use the $sign. So therefore I just use the $sign. That is a partial lock. And ensure that is at the start of that given cell. So once you do so, you put a comma. They want the table array. Where do we want to get that information? To match the information we want to match from here. So you highlight the whole of this data. Then you can put a comma. Then they want what we call the column index. From the table array, what is in that we want to match in our case? We want to match what we call the project focus. And the project focus from our table array is in the second column. So you just put the second column there. You put a comma, then you can, now here, they want true approximation or false approximation. So generally, that is where I'm just talking about the true. You can just talk of the true approximation, but that one has no impact. And then you put, you close the brackets. Close the brackets here. So close the brackets. So once you close the brackets, press enter. You can see the higher learning is on education as per the project here. So once you do the first one, you just come here, you place your cursor on the far corner, and then you double click that way. Others will automatically be to their respective projects as is indicated. So that is how you fill on the M, column M of the project focus. We go to the next one. Is on what we call the disbursed amount. Is on what we call the disbursed amount. Now, disbursed amounts in this case is also for this project ID. So it will depend on the project ID because of the information that you've been given here. So we want to know out of each project, how much has it been allocated? How much has been disbursed to that particular project? And again, also, since in this case we've been given the table array, we'll also be able to use what we call the Vlookup. So this is how I say is equals the Vlookup here, Vlookup. Vlookup in this case, they want the lookup value, which in this case should be the project ID. This one, project ID. I can do what we call a partial lock for the project ID. And partial lock I've said is the $sign. Then you put a comma. Then they want the table array. So table array is this one. So I just highlight on the first row. Then you can press Control Shift arrow down. You'll be able to highlight the whole of it. Once you highlight the whole of it, you put a comma. Once you put a comma, then column index. So from the table array, what is it that we're looking for? Is the disbursed amount, which from the table array is in column 3. So I will have column 3, comma. Then I can put I can close the brackets, then enter. In this case, you'll see for project, this is a P439. If you look at the amount that was disbursed on that project, it should be that one. So once you do the first one, then you can autofill. In autofilling, place the cursor on the far corner of that given cell. Then you can double click that way. You see, in this case, out of the one that we have given here, the one that they are talking about not applicable they are telling us there was nothing that was disbursed on that project. So in this, if I use the data with not applicable, then in all the others it will not be able to complete some of them, especially like here we have in the disbursed balance. It will just be telling us not applicable all through. So instead, since it is zero that was allocated to that particular project, we can use zero. And therefore, this is now where I will introduce the concept of what we call the if error. So if error is equals if error. Let me just write the if error. Now, when you look at the if error, this is what it tells us. It returns value if error or if expression is an error, and the value of the expression itself otherwise. So if it is telling us an error, it will now return that into a value. So in this case, I will use the if error here. And then what I'll do here, I'll just say, I'll put a comma, then I want it in form of zero. So you just input, I just input here in quotes, the zero. Ensure the zero there in quotes, zero. So in quotes, zero in quotes, then you can close the brackets that way. Once you do that, you can press enter. And then once you do that, you can now do the autofill. It will just be zero. It will just be zero for where we have in the error. It will just be zero. Because if you use it as a not applicable or an error, everything will still be showing us what we call in the error. So that is on that column of R. Moving up to that point, we are together. Can now get to what we call the disbursed balance. The disbursed balance. So for the disbursed balance, we'll just be looking for the budgeted amount, you less the amount that are disbursed to those various projects, so that you know the balance that is remained or that has remained to be disbursed. So in this case, I would say is equals. Then I will take the budgeted, you minus the disbursed balances. In that case, then you can press enter. That is the disbursed balance. Once you do the first one, you can just place your cursor on the far corner, then you double click. It will give you the disbursed amount. The disbursed amount. That is it on that. Other one is what we call the project variance. Project variance in this case is generally whether the amount was overspent or what we call the underspent. When I talk of overspent or underspent, we depend on the budgeted amount and then the amount that was spent on either the project cost and also what we call in the admin. So I'll just be taking the budget. I will minus what we call the project cost and admin cost. So it will just be is equals to take the budgeted amount here, you minus what was spent. They spend it into what? They spend the amount in what we call the project cost, and then you add the admin cost, and then I can close the bracket, then enter. This is the project variance. And then you can also do the same, you autofill. See the negative here. The negative means that in that case it is adverse. If it's positive, it means that it was favorable. That is generally what in this case mean. Now, the other one is the variance status. In budgeting here, we talk of either favorable or adverse, meaning that if this is positive, means that in the amount that was budgeted plus what they spend, what they spend is lower than what was budgeted there. So we mean they did what we call the underspent. If it is more than they budgeted, it means that they overspent. And therefore, when they overspend, it is adverse. When they underspend, in this case, should be what? Favorable. So I will use what we call the if statement. If statement. And how do we use the if statement? We say is equals if statement. So we go to what we call the if statement. Now, if statement here, it checks a condition, whether a condition is met, and the returns on one value is true and another value is false. Now, our condition here is just one. We want to know whether the amount allocated there, when you compare with the project cost and admin cost, whether it is true it was overspent. If not true, it means that it was underspent, which in this case, it should tell us whether it is what? It should tell us what we call adverse. And therefore, I'll just click on what we call the if statement here, the logical test. What do I want to test? If this amount project plus the projected plus the admin, if that is less than, this is less than, if it's less than the budgeted here, it should tell me it is favorable. So you open the quotes, should tell me favorable. Let me use a small value, favorable. I close the quotes, comma. If not, should tell me adverse. I also open the quotes, should tell me adverse. That way. And I close the brackets. That way. Let me these adverse to start with a capital A. That way. So if it's true, it tells me like this is positive, it has to, because if this is less than the budgeted, it means that it should be favorable. If it is more than the budgeted, it means that this should be adverse. And therefore, I press enter. You see? And if you compare this as a positive, meaning that this was underspent, favorable. Once you do the first one, you can automatically autofill. I double click here. Any negative here, it will be showing you advance. And that is how we were to do the first one. The first one you were to fill as required here using the relevant formulas and function. You fill the appropriate data to the blank columns. The appropriate data to the blank columns M, R, U, V, and W. So up to that point, anyone with a question? Up to that point, anyone with a question? No, right? Okay, let's proceed then. Now we go to the Roman number 2. That was Roman 1. So up to that point, you have the 5 marks. Number 2, you are required the number of our connectivity projects that were implemented. So I'll just come to this information here. Then I can have the required huku chini. I can have the required somewhere here is equals the number of our connectivity is what they want here, and number of power connectivity implemented. The number of power connectivity implemented. So meaning that here we're going to count. So here we're going to use what we call the Countif. Countif. The Countif is equals the Countif. Now this is how the Countif tells us. It counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given condition. So we want to only count it being a project that has been implemented, and it relates to what we call the power connectivity. So I will count if. Here it will tell you the range. So I'll just come to the project. Hapa project lazima ikuwe ina relate na project activity. So I highlight on the project here. Project connectivity. If you right click, then you can, sorry, I think I've done a mistake there. So count if you just come here is a project we are looking for. So I have to highlight the whole of this. Shift page down. Shift Control Shift page down. That way. How do you go to the bottom of the data? Bottom of the data, you always use the Control Shift, arrow up or arrow up or down. You use either. It will just take you very fast. So you can use the far corner. Far corner, you just drag this cursor from here. So that is it. So once you do that, you highlight. Once you highlight, you put a comma as required, and then the criteria, comma. Criteria is that we want the power connectivity. So you can type or you can click on either of these. So in my case, I am not seeing power connectivity. Inakaa ziko mingi haziko, but I can type. I just say power connectivity. I can just type into quotes here, power. Remember, when you use what we call the if, you have to ensure the condition that you are given, the criteria that you are given is always in quotes. So power connectivity. Power connectivity, and you close the bracket that way. Then you press enter. So the number of power connectivity projects wamefanya ni 630. 630 that way. 630. I'm hoping that one is okay. So 630. Go to Roman number 2. Roman number 2, they want the total amount disbursed by the national treasury. Total amount disbursed by the national treasury. So I'll just come here to the projects. We have the projects here, this. So I just need to come to the end of this particular project, the total amount. So I'll just use the auto sum. 9W. Okay. Ambiwa nirudie that one. Let me just repeat very fast. This is what I've done. So the first thing you say is equals. You use the count if, because if you are counting, we use when you are counting values. When you are counting items in a cell, there is what we call a count and kuna counter A, counter A. Counter A in accounting all the cells regardless of what it is having, or generally with numbers. But in count only the alphabets, the count if, the count. But when we use if is when you are now specific on what you are supposed to count. So you just say is equals. I'll say the count if. I want to count if is there is a power connectivity. This one. So criteria range. This should be on the projects. So these are our projects here. E. So you can click there, then Control Shift arrow up. Evil. And now that I don't want, I want from here. So lazima ianzie hapo. Then you put the comma. Criteria. I see the criteria you can just type. You open the quotes. Useme power connectivity. Power connectivity. Close the quotation. If you use if statement, always ensure you put whatever you are the criteria into quotes. Then you close that and you can press enter. There are 630 euro. Mobbing that is okay, Tom? Tom, I'm moving now, it is okay. All right. Now the total amount that was disbursed. So I've said we just come to what we call the total that was disbursed here. Yeah, this is where you get that information on the table arrays. You just say alt is equals, and you get the total amount that was disbursed. So I'll just come here to my required. I need here it will be is equals the total yenye nimepata. Nimesema you just use the auto sum. Inakupea the total very quickly. The auto sum there. Auto, I've said is just the alt is equals. So that is the total amount disbursed. Go to Roman number 3. Required 3. The average. Now, even though tumeambiwa, they want the average budget of kwanza social services projects in Nanti. So after there are 2 conditions that we're supposed to use. Now that we want the average, we're going to use what we call the average ifs, because we have more than one condition. When you are given more than one condition, we use what we call the average. We use the ifs with an S. So here I'll just say is equals the average ifs. Average if is a criteria 1. Here we're talking about the projects. So the projects is the social service. So for project ni hapa, I can average range. So you can autofill. You can, I write page up. That is oh, this is not project. You may click wrong one. No, sorry. Average rate is what you want to look for. The summation of what we want to look for. Average rate is for the budget. Since this is for the budget, not the budgeted on average budget. So I will just highlight the budget. Iko hapa. Takuja kwa budgeted here. Iko hapa. So I need to highlight this evil. That is the average range, comma. They want the criteria range. Criteria range is for the projects. Here we are talking about the average of social service. So it must be a social service project. So criteria range one, we go to the project. So ni hizi hapa. So the projects are here. Hapa. So I will also highlight page up, right, project focus. Hivyo. Sawa sawa, comma. We want is for social what? Social services. I will also click that. That is a criteria one range, comma. And then they want also criteria two range is from Nandi County. So my criteria two range will be here, the county now. So I highlight all the county zote hivyo, then comma ya Nandi. Nandi iko wapi? I'll just click Nandi that way, and then you can close a bracket. Hivyo tu, hivyo you press enter. So the amount allocated, the average budget for the social services project in Nandi, ndio hiyo tu, that one. Do I repeat again? I've said here there are two conditions that we have in here. Lazima kwanza ikue we are looking for the average budget. Lazima ikue for services, social services project. And this is from what we call the Nandi County. So let me just repeat again. Someone is asking, I repeat. Let me just repeat. It's very simple this way. So I just do it that way. I've said, now that we have in more than one condition that we want to give here, we use what, and we are looking for the average. We use what we call the Averageifs. So the average range near budget. So you go to where the budget is, the budgeted amount. So napanda huku juu ni juu ya budget ndo hii. So I can highlight yote. Then you put a comma. They want the criteria range. Criteria range here we've said it is the average budget for the projects, which is easy hapa. Tuko na hizo project tu. So projects here na is a social service project. So utakuja hapa highlight hivyo. I can also control shift page up to select that particular part of the project. I want the project there. Once you do that, you put the comma. From the project, what do I want is for social services, comma. Ndio sasa inakwambia criteria one range and then the criteria. So ya kwanza is from the project na tunataka social service. Hiyo ndo criteria one. Remember average range is here. Criteria range is from where? Project focus. Criteria range one, social service. Now twende criteria range two, which is now from the county. Twende your county, the criteria range, yeah. I can also control shift page down. Tunataka tu ya Nandi. The criteria two for Nandi. So you put a comma, then Nanti. Nanti iko wapi? Just highlight Nanti. Mali utaona Nanti. Hivyo tu. And then you close the bracket. Press enter. Ushamaliza hiyo. That is on the Averageifs. Lakini tungeulizwa Averageif is from Kiambu, or that unafanya tu hiyo inakupea tu ikiwa depending na one criteria. Remember if statement hiyo ni when you are given it only one condition. Kama ningetaka kupata average for Nandi peke yake, you just use the column for Nandi then the average itakupea hivyo. Now we continue. That was Roman number 3. And remember again, as you do your work, always ensure that you save. So ndo maana yangu unaona naenda tu ni save. Twende Roman 3. The one now we create pivot summaries. Sasa hii inatupeleka kwa what we call the data visualization. How do we create pivot table? So I want you to be very keen on this. So I'll just have it here. Nataka hapa chini tu. I'll just have it here is equals. I'll go to the create pivot summary here. And tuanze na Roman 1 is equals. Tunataka pivot summary for the budget allocated per project. Budget allocated per project. So this is how you do. Kwanza utakuja highlight the all of these data. Tuanzia hapa kuna project, usonge nayo mpaka mwisho hivyo up to here. Sawa sawa. Up to that point. Sorry, nimefanya aje? Yeah, you highlight that. So you press control, then shift page down or that way to ensure that you have highlighted the whole data. Once you highlight the whole data, you go to what we call the pivot here. The data generally, or you go to insert. Let me use the word insert here. You go to insert, then, oh sorry, let me just repeat again. Highlight, then you insert, then you click on what we call the pivot table and charts, pivot 2. So you highlight that. Pivot charts and table. You go to insert the pivot chart, then the pivot chart and table. Hapa uklik ndio tunaitaka tu to this existing sheet. Click hapa. Mali unaitaka. Mimi naitaka wapi? Unateremka tu kidogo tu. Naitaka hapa. So I'll just click there. Then you say okay. Sorry, nimetumia pivot chart, not pivot table. Sorry. Let me repeat again. I've used pivot chart and I want a pivot table. Ndio hizi hapa, sorry. Ndio hii ya kwanza. Mimi nimetumia chart instead of table. Should here. This is the pivot table yenye inaanza. So you click on pivot table, tuseme new, and then mali unataka iapie kuja hapa. My case nataka iapie hapa. Then you can click OK. Hivyo sawa. So I want the budgeted versus what we call the project. So on the row, I can have here the project hapa. Unaipuruta hapa kwa row project. I think I've highlighted until the wrong data. Let me just review this. Kama tume highlight until hizi za huku chini. add it to the required, ndio maana inatuletea hiyo. So undo. But let me see how, yeah, ndio maana ime highlight kila kitu, na sitaki kila kitu. I just want only for the data that you are having. So highlight the data when only this data yenye tuko nayo hapa. So you just go that way mpaka hapo, control shift page down. Yeah, should be that way now. Ensure that you are only covering the data that you are doing the assessment. Then you come to insert pivot table. Hivyo. Then you'll have existing. Na hapa uteremke tu mali tunaitaka. Sisi tunaitaka tu hapa. Yeah. And then you say okay. So the pivot table here is a project versus a budgeted. So unateremka hapa kwa values, unaweka the budget hivyo. Hiyo ushamaliza. Hiyo ndo Roman 1. Unaweka the budgeted versus hiyo ingine. Twende Roman 2. Now what are we required in Roman number 2? I'll also go is equals. Roman 2, they want the amount is bars per project focus. Hivyo. Amount is bars per project focus. So hii utakuja tu copy this. Just copy that. Copy that. Then ukuja hapa you paste it. Hivyo. So what do we want here? We want the amount is bars per project, meaning that here I need the project here. Kwanza kwa row. Then we want the amount is bars. Here, the disbursed amount. Tusonge hapa, this one. So sitaki budget, I just need the disbursed amount. Now ukiangalia hapa, haijaleta disbursed amount. What it has done to us, imetupea what we call in the count of disbursed amount. Na sisi tunataka the disbursed amount. So what you do, utakuja hapa, you left click. Utakuja hapa to the far corner, you left click, and then you value field. So sisi hatutaki count, we want the amount. So you use the sum, hivyo. So this is the sum of disbursed amount, hivyo. That is how you get the sum of disbursed amount. Hapo sasa. Hiyo ndo Roman 2. The Roman 2. We go to Roman number 3. Hapo kuna swali before I proceed. Umeshika hiyo? Any question on that? All right. Tunaendelea basi. Roman 3. Roman 3. You go to Roman number 3. Sasa hapa wanataka, here they want the project cost and what we call in the administrative cost trend. Hapa tukionyeshana years and the months. So nitakuja hapa ni copy hii original EV2 wenye nafanya. You copy that. I paste it here. Or you can just press Control V up. So what we want is a project cost and administrative cost. Hiyo tu. So kumaanisha we also want the date. So hapa nitakuwa na date. So hapa nitaanza na date kwa row hivyo. Then we want the project cost. Sitaki budget. I want the project cost. Iko wapi? Project cost ya itakuwa ya kwanza hapo. And then the budget admin cost niweke hapo ya pili. O hii haijatokea. So ama una click tu. Let me just click there. Hivyo. Itakuwa imetokea hapo. Sawa sawa. So in our case, we want them per date. Remember showing the years and months. So hapa utakuja uklik hapa tu hivyo tu, inakuonyesha quarter this way. So you click here, unaona quarter hapa, unaona January to that quarter 2 hivyo, quarter 3 tunataka ikue months hivyo, and then just remove the quarter here. I can remove the quarter. So utakuja hapo utoe hii quarter hapa tu, ukiklik hivyo itatoa hiyo quarter. Once it removes the quarter, sasa hii ingine ukiklik itakuwa inakuonyesha hivyo zote, add hivyo, na hiyo ushamaliza. That is how we do that one. Hivyo tu, that is how you do that one. You first click on date, projects, and that way. Hiyo tushamaliza. So that was Roman number 2, question 2. So up to that point now, hii ilikuwa max 8. Have you add these other 4, 6, kuna 14, twende ya mwisho. With the summaries in B above, you are required to create appropriate visualization with the below focus method. Sasa hizi ni za comparison, kuna dispersal. Now that I have the data here, yani kuja hapa, now tuko na hii data, tutaanzia hii ya kwanza because this is what they want. So based on that information is equals the required hii ingine required, they want with the summaries, you know. So is equals I want 4 budgeted here, the budgeted. So yeah, this is how we do now. For this one, we generally draw in what we call the graph. So you just highlight this, hivyo tu. You highlight that, then utakuja kwa insert pivot chart, ama unaweza you can go to what we call the pivot charts, ama utumie recommended charts, inakuonyesha. So you click on the pivot chart. Now when in this case we're talking about comparison. In comparison, we use what we call the bar charts or what we call the cluster charts. When you are doing comparison, we use the bar charts. So I'll just click on that, the bar charts, and then utaileta tu hapa. So ukitaka kuminimize unaweza minimize kidogo tu hivyo. That is it. Hiyo hii itakuwa dogo zaidi. So ndo izikuwe dogo sana, unaweza irefusha tu kidogo that way. So you've done that one. So you use what we call the bar chart. If let me just repeat. If I use a bar chart, this is it. Takuja hapa. I think already there is the pivot analysis, table analysis. So you can click on the pivot table analysis here or design. Inanifunga. So I'll just come here, pivot table design. You or you insert here pivot chart. I've said you can use a bar chart. Yeah, hiyo itakupea hivyo, lakini most of the cases let's use a clustered what? The clustered chart kama hiyo. So you do that, then here I can just say okay. so itakuwa imeonyeshana hivyo that way. That is what we do in this case when we draw in the charts. We go to the other one, Roman 2 is equals. Roman 2, they want what we call for the amount is bars now. This one, focus bar. Now this is on proportionality. Proportionality, we use what we call the pie charts. Pie charts. So you just go to insert, unaenda hapa kwa charts, lakini hapa uklik hiyo pie chart that way, and then you say okay. So wewe unaileta tu hapo mali inafaa. That is a pie chart, hivyo tu that way. The other one is Roman 3. They want also 4 is equals. This is now for I have to highlight this. Sorry, not this. Is equals. This is now required of project that way. So hii itakuwaje? You just have to highlight the whole of this. Kwambia control page down. Hiyo ndio ni mingi. Then you just come here to insert. You click on page. Now for this one, now they want what? Sijasoma. Wanataka nini? The required here is showing the trend. Ukitaka kuonyeshana trend tunatumianga the line. Line. So I'll use a line chart. So hapo utakuja hapo line. See, utakuja hapa Vivo charts. Ukuja hapa kuna hii line iko wapi? Hiyo. Hii tu. That way. And then you say okay. Na ushamaliza. Hiyo ndo inakuanga rahisi sana. And you are done. You're done with the question. So by doing that, already you have the 20 marks. Nani ako na swali? Anyone who is having a question? Anyone with a question on the same? Any question? So more of our data visualization, we'll just be doing it as we proceed. Again, also on the cases of Vlookup and Xlookup, I'll show you in the process. So in my next class, I will now do on the loan amortization. So unless there is anyone who is having a question, so you can end the class at that point. Anyone with a question? And remember, for the business and data analysis is all about time management. I said, hizi ukiangalia kama hii swali, this one was an elective question. So you were to choose to do it if you wanted to do it. And ukiangalia hapa, hii una question 21 hii inakuanga compulsory. And then question 22 is always compulsory. Question 21 and question 22. Hizo zinakuanga compulsory. Question 23 and question 24 you choose one. Lakini hapa walikuwa wamesema section 3. Yeah, this one hebu nisome tena hapa. Kiona kwa section A wanasema answer all the question, and question A inakuanga only 21, 22 and 23. Hiyo ulikuwa you are required to do them. And then from 24 hapa ndo una choose one between 24 and 25. 24 is always on auditing. Hiyo hata ukifanya ukiangalia utapata ni auditing. Ndio inakwambia ufanye adjustment, materiality and so forth. Then 25 you choose. Hiyo ulikuwa you choose only one. Na hivyo. And here you only need to do 3 Excel questions. Na ushapita. 3, only 3. And those that you are sure of. So that is it. In most of the cases, I will be showing you more of time management. Kuna zingine unaweza fanya you waste a lot of time. Hii tumefanya hivyo juu tulikuwa tunaidiscuss. Imagine if you are to do in an exam, you can do it in less than even 30 minutes because it's so direct and straight. So I will just be showing you more of these things as we proceed. So situmalizie hapo. Kama kuna mtu ako na swali, kunayo? I will share these workings because basically if you also want to know how we've done, see tumetumia formula. You just use the Excel and itakuwa inakuonyesha hiyo. So I'm going to share it immediately to your various groups. So you go through that. And as I said, ensure you always and again, sure you have somewhere to write. Sure that you also practice. Because kitu ya kwanza nataka you just familiarize yourself with the Excel. You familiarize yourself with the Excel, then these things will go as easy. Hata utapenda sana. You just love it. It's very simple and good. So enjoy your night. We meet in our next class. Ama kuna mtu ako na swali? Think about severally. And generally, if you also want to be speaking, ukitaka kuuliza kwa kuongea, just tell me to unmute. I will just be unmuting you. Because nataka hakuna haja uanguke hii paper. It is very easy. You just do it in one touch and you're done. Sawa sawa. Kama unataka ukuwe unmuted to ask the question, the better. Na usiongope. Just ask the question that you just want to ask. Sawa sawa. Yeah, so good night everyone. Let's meet in our next class. That is on Tuesday. We do now on what we call the loan amortization. And we'll also see how we do what we call the goal seek even. So we continue from there in our next class. Enjoy your night.